probably all of you guys are like, well, geez, if I could just get the money back for my car when I sell it, I'd be happy. So welcome back to GT Canada. This is Anton, and I'm going to tell you today about something really exciting we got coming up. My family and I, we're going to do a road trip. And when we do road trips, there's nothing really fancy about it, but I like to have a little bit more space than what my daily driver is. So right now I'm driving Ford Flex, 7-passenger. So I've got some room, but I've got 4 kids that are going to be coming on this road trip, and me and my wife. So that's 2 people per seat, 2, 2, and 2. Now, maybe we're being spoiled. Not everybody's used to as much space when they're driving around as we are. Normally, see, we've had a lot of interesting vehicles over the years. So when it's time for a road trip, we had I used to drive a 15-passenger giant white van, like the big contractor vans, but fully decked out all the passenger seating. So the last road trip we went on, I bought another 15-passenger van and proceeded to kit it all out with captain's chairs for the first 3 rows and then a giant bench seat in the back so that we could all stretch out. Now, we had an interesting incident on that trip, so a little bit of trauma surrounds going in those vans again, so we got to find something suitable for a road trip but isn't a big white van. So the Ford Flex will work if we have to, but I think we can do something a little bit better. So what I'm doing is I'm going to try an experiment, and what I want to find out is, can somebody buy a vehicle for a road trip that's reliable, doesn't break the bank, and if we do this correctly, the vehicle will be better suited for a road trip, i.e. more space. So I'm looking at a minivan. Most people, you don't want to drive a minivan daily. I'm one of those people, and a lot of people are like that. That's why SUVs are as popular as they are, because nobody wants to drive a minivan, but everyone will drive an SUV without complaining about it. Well, I don't want to drive an SUV every day because those use a little bit more gas than I'd like to. I've got a commute of about 30 kilometers each way to work. So I need to think about fuel economy a little bit. So I drive a vehicle that's a little bit better on gas. I can fit the family when I need to, but when it's time for a road trip, I still want something that's good on gas, but also has more space. So I'm looking for a minivan. So ideally, I'll buy a minivan for a reasonable price. It will be reliable, and we'll do the whole trip without any incident. And when we get back from the trip, I intend to sell that minivan for hopefully a profit. And if it all works out the way I plan, it'll be enough profit that it will almost or completely cover the cost of the trip. So those are the criteria I'm looking at. And we're leaving on this trip in 2 weeks. So that gives me a week or less to find the vehicle. Then I've got to get it prepared for the road trip, and then ultimately selling it. And then we'll take the cash in, or we'll take the tally of where we're at and see if we successfully pulled off this objective of mine. I think I can do it. I've done similar in the past, but this one's a little bit more ambitious. It's more than our $500 challenge. It's a little bit more than the average person really wants to spend, but I think this is a good solution to renting a vehicle for a road trip, because a lot of people do that, and this is going to be a great experiment. So stick around to see how this all plays out, and this is going to be awesome. So here it is. As you guys heard before, I was looking for a vehicle that I could get for a road trip. We're going for, it's like, I don't know, about 4,000 miles. So it's not a short road trip. We're going a long way. Let me tell you first of all about this van. It's a 2007 Honda Odyssey. This is the touring model. So I got it for $2,000 Canadian. That's about 1,200 bucks US. It is actually an American van. So I bought it off the third owner. He bought it off a guy who moved to Canada from the US. They brought the van with them. And then he's had the vehicle for about 4 years, 5 years. And now they were looking for something new. So it has 160,000 miles on it, which is somewhere around 260, 270,000 kilometers. Now that starts to get kind of up there. These vans are known for having transmission issues. Notably, the second gear starts to fail on it. So this one seems okay. I am a little worried because it has a hitch on the back. And usually when there's a hitch, that means you will have a transmission problem. If somebody towed with this, I'm gonna be in trouble. But for now, it's shifting okay. Seems like it's fine. Some things that it needed right off the bat. So there was a really loud clunk that was coming from the front end. If you've seen my videos already, you'll know that I changed the sway bar bushings and the end links. That got rid of the clunk. Then I went and had the alignment done on it because it still was a little bit loose on the highway. So now it tracks nice and straight and it's good. So no more clunks, no more pulling around on lanes. So I fixed that. Also, when I bought it, he had self-diagnosed it. So he had said it won't go into reverse when you put your foot on the brake, and you have to use the shift release, which allows you to put it into any gear you want. So you'd have to put it into neutral, then start the car. So he decided that that was the solenoid for the shift reverse lockout. So I went and had a look, test drove it and whatever, and I'm not too worried about something like that. I can replace that. While we were on the test drive, I noticed that the cruise control also didn't work. And usually the cruise is dependent on the brake switch. So I said, you know, I wonder if the brake switch is actually what's broken, and that would explain why the shift lock doesn't work, but it would also explain the cruise control. If the solenoid was bad, then the cruise control would still work. So it was just me there by myself, so I bought the car, but I couldn't drive it home because I had nobody with me to help bring it home. So what I did was went home, started researching, okay, how am I going to check the brake switch and everything, found a brake switch. Then I started to find, well, maybe it's the fuse. Could be the brake light fuse. So I ran back to the guy's place. He was about a 45-minute drive away from me. So I spent more than 3 hours that day going back and forth. Anyway, when I got there to go and pick the van back up, I had already paid him ahead. I got the bill of sale. I had the keys, so I told him I'd just come back later, throw my plate on, and drive it home. When I got there, I got the person that came with me to push the brakes, and sure enough, the brake lights didn't come on either. So that means now either the switch is bad or the fuse is blown. So I popped the fuse open and noticed that the fuse also says horn/brake. So I got the person, I said, hey, honk the horn, because the horn has nothing to do with the brake switch. They go to honk the horn, and sure enough, the horn doesn't work. Pull out the fuse is blown, put a new fuse in, shifting fine, brake lights are working, horn's working, everything's fixed. So I dodged a bullet there, no repairs required. I'm into this van for about $2,300 Canadian because with the alignment and the parts and everything. I also did an oil change on it because I like to start my road trips with fresh oil. So really excited about going on the road trip with this van. I've driven it around here, and the kids have all been in it, and they're really excited now for the trip because that Flex was going to be a little bit squishy. This has a little bit more room. The seats are a little bit bigger. They recline. There's a lot more options available on this. This is the touring model, so that means we've got backup camera, we've got DVD, I've got GPS on here, all the power options, leather, heated seats, AC, hopefully it works. It's freezing cold up here in Canada still, so when we get down to Arizona, we'll really see if that AC works. I got the sunroof, I've got power sliding doors on it, it's got the regular alloy wheels with some all-season tires. I'm gonna try and swap those out before we go on the trip because I think I'm gonna want some winter tires on here. We're going through some crazy mountain passes, the ice can get bad, and these tires will not be suited for icy conditions. They'll handle snow, they'll handle mud, they'll handle rain, but when you get on straight ice, it's really bad. I actually transferred my satellite radio subscription over to this so that we'll get tunes all the way through. I also made the GT Canada Road Trip music collection. It's about 500 songs of stuff that I like listening to on road trips. It's got a varying selection of different genres and styles, but usually we crank that on the road trip. So we might end up just listening to that over the satellite radio, but who knows, we got options. So the other things I need to do, I'm gonna get this fully road trip ready. And I'm going to start working on that today. So I've got a number of goodies that we're going to put in here. A few things that I like to add for my road trips. Wi-Fi. So this is just a local intranet, not internet. What that means is anyone who has a device in the vehicle will be able to connect to the Wi-Fi, and they'll be able to see the other devices. So my kids, when they were younger, they liked that they could connect their phone or their tablet up to the Wi-Fi, and then they could play Minecraft together in a local game. So they could run around together and share it, and it's really good. What we do now though, I have a little USB stick, and I load it up with a bunch of movies, usually Marvel movies, Disney movies, and then just some varying movies. I get a 128 gig USB stick, plug it into that router, and then anyone who connects to the router, as long as you're on an Android device, you open up VLC, it'll find that network location, and you can stream all of those movies from the Wi-Fi to your device. So I don't have to have one card for each kid that all has the same movies so they can each watch whatever they want. This way, I have one central location with all of the files on there, and then it'll feed those to them as they need it. And I have no problem streaming it within the car. So it works really, really beautifully. So I've got that system I'm going to show you. I'm going to install that. We'll show you that. I've also got a few power inverters, and I usually hook those up and then run extension cords to each of the seats. That way the kids, because they'll bring their laptops, tablets, whatever. So if they each get at least one outlet, one socket, power socket, then they can plug whatever they want in at that time. So if they've got a DS or a 3DS or a Switch, they can plug that in and have it charging while they're playing. If they bring their laptop, they just unplug the switch, plug the laptop in, and then that'll be able to charge while they're doing whatever they're doing on the laptop. Same with phones, same with tablets, whatever. So I don't give them all like multiple plugs. They'll get one plug each at least, and then phone chargers, whatever, they can run it all off of there. So we're gonna have this whole van all wired up. Also, I've got some LED headlights that I'm gonna install because I like to be able to see when I drive at night. And I've got LED fog lights. The fog lights on here are totally busted. So I'm gonna put some LED fog lights on there. That'll help light up the road right in front of us. And I'll try to set them off so that they light the ditch up a bit as well. So a lot of different little things they're gonna be doing today. Now, obviously you're gonna notice, first of all, it's dirty, but there's lots of paint chips all over on this. It looks like it was driven through a sandblaster, which contributes partly to the cheaper price. I didn't care what it looked like so much as what the mechanical was like, because we want to be able to make this trip there and back. That's the whole point of doing this. I'm expecting that it's going to be an uneventful trip in the sense that we're going to just drive, we're going to do our thing, we'll be okay. So we've just made it across the border. We're into Montana now. So far, no problems. I've traveled about 207 miles, 350 or so kilometers, and everything's still going just as expected. And we expect to make it to probably Idaho before nightfall. So here we are the next morning. We made it to Idaho Falls just fine. No issues with the van. You can see it's running in the background here. So far there's been really no issues with it at all. We drove through some snowstorms and the winter tires were working great. Kids have been comfortable. They started complaining a little bit about being too close to each other, and I told them they could walk if they kept going on, so they shut up and just went back to watching videos. So so far everything's going great with the trip. We're gonna do a couple more speed shots of us progressing through. Expected to make it all the way to Arizona tonight. It's gonna be about 13 hours of driving from here, so got quite a ways to go still, but so far everything's going great. So I spoke a little too soon. We were trying to leave the parking lot from the hotel, and the passenger door, well, the van started beeping at us to say that something wasn't right. Turned out the passenger door was getting stuck. So what we had to do was turn the power door off, and then we could move it by hand, but you can see it's still very stiff. I think it's because it's so dang cold here. It's colder here than it was in Canada where we left from. So we did get it to close, the alarm went away, and when we get to Arizona, I'll maybe see if I can grease that up. But that's the first problem so far from this trip. So good morning. As you can see, I definitely made it to Arizona. And as you can see, the van also made it to Arizona. So we made it in late last night. We had no problems at all. So the van worked great the whole way. Only issues we noticed were the power sliding door, which you guys already saw. It still is getting stuck. And the rear tire on the driver's side is losing air very slowly, so I have to keep topping it up every couple days. But otherwise, it's been a great van. So this door, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So I can hit it like that and it'll open just fine. And then other times when we close it, it doesn't close all the time. You can hear it getting really tight. That time it was super smooth, but the cable back here is binding up. So I thought it would kind of heal itself a little bit as it got warmer, but it hasn't gotten any better since it warmed up out here. So that's one of the major issues. I have also taken a little bit of time to fix up the front bumper. As you can see, it's not all, you would have seen in the other videos, it was all black and messed up. So I just grabbed some rattle cans, some spray paint, and masked it off in the driveway and just sprayed it up. So that makes it look a little bit better. And then we also washed the van, so it's much cleaner. Fully loaded with all our gear in the back right now. So there you can see us trying to get ready to head out now to go back home and make the trip back to Canada. We're going to take a few days to do this. If anything interesting happens, I'll be sure to film it, but the next time you guys see me, we might be back in Canada in the snow. So we'll see you all in a minute. Hey, so we're on the drive home out here at Lake Havasu, and in the background, there you go, van doing beautifully. So we're out here just north of Idaho Falls, and I wasn't driving last night, I was asleep, and when I woke up to go in the hotel, this is what I found. I think somewhere we've made a terrible mistake in driving back home, but the good news is the van is still working great, and we're working on the rest of our trip now, trying to make it back to Airdrie tonight to finish this off. So as you can see, obviously we are back in Canada, which you can tell from all the snow that is everywhere. So the trip was a great success in our sweet Honda Odyssey van. Now we've got it up for sale, and we're looking to see if anybody wants to come and buy this sweet ride. Hey, so as you've seen already, we're back from our trip. We've been back now for actually just over a week. Thought I'd give an update on how the van sale is going, and it's actually not going as great as I hoped it would. Before we left, the ones that are kind of medium to low end quality were being listed between $4,000 and $5,000, and so I thought it'd be pretty easy to list it for $5,000 and then get between $4,000 to $4,500 for it. I had a couple of guys offer me $3,000, which was not enough. If I sold it for $3,000, I would get I'd get my money back, which would be great, but that's not the purpose of this challenge, right? You remember I said I want to buy a van, have it be reliable, take it on the trip, and when we get back, sell it for enough money that I should be able to help cover some of the cost of the trip with that money. Selling it for $3,000, that's not going to do that for me. That's going to just get me my money back, which it'd be all right. Probably all of you guys are like, well, geez, if I could just get the money back for my car when I sell it, I'd be happy. Well, that's not much of a challenge. Like I said, that's really, I do that all the time. So I lowered the price. I've got it listed now at $4,800. I'm getting a lot more interest. I got people saying they want to come look at it. We're expecting a snowstorm here tonight, which usually people stop looking at cars. Like, the viewership goes way down when it starts snowing. So I'm not hopeful to sell it this weekend, but I do have a couple promising leads. I think I have to lower my expectations a little bit. So that's where we're at. At some point I might have to lower the price and just sell it for what I'm into it for, because I really don't need a minivan. Right now it's just parked out front of my house, just sitting there waiting for its new owner to come buy it. So I got to get this moving and get this video done. So here we are. It's been 3 weeks since our road trip experiment. For you guys, it will have only felt like probably a slide of a cut of the film. But I've had the van for sale now for 3 weeks, and as you know, I started asking about $5,500, which is what I thought the van would be worth based on its condition, the miles, and so on. That quickly became obvious that it was not worth that much at this point in time, and so the market will dictate what the value is. So I lowered the price and lowered the price and lowered the price, and I was getting lowball offers quite consistently. So in the end, I had it as low as $3,500. Once I hit the $3,500 mark, lots and lots of interest, lots of people saying, hey, I'm gonna come have a look, I wanna see it, I'm gonna buy it. And a lot of people that just don't respect your time and just don't do what they say they're gonna do. And so I sat around a lot waiting for people to come, and I had some guys that said, hey, will you take $3,000? I'm like, it's less than I really wanted, but sure, bring $3,000 cash, I'll sell you my van. And they'd show up, and most of the time, the people that came were not native Canadians. They would speak broken English if any English at all. And so the exchange was quite interesting because there's no good communication. And so they just kind of look around, pop the hood, have a look, listen to it run, close the hood and say bye, and get in their car and leave. And the first guy did it, and then another guy did it, I'm like, I don't even know what these people are seeing. So my best guess, you guys saw the bumper. I fixed the bumper up, made it look nice. Some guys were like, oh, I think it was in an accident because the bumper's been repainted. I'm like, no, I painted the bumper because the paint was all flaking off because it's a 2007. I mean, what do you expect? But the three things that contributed to it being a hard sale. Number one, the hood was totally peppered with rock chips and exposed bare metal. It was not rusting, but it was exposed bare metal, and it didn't look good. And I know it doesn't look good, and I think I even called it out in this video already. Number two, tan leather interior. Now, leather is great. Tan anything is awful. In my opinion, tan is almost as bad as maroon. And so those of you who remember late 80s and early 90s cars, they were awful for maroon, gross maroon interiors, gross dark blue interiors, just looked gross. And tan is not much better. In my opinion, any vehicle I've owned that has had a tan interior did not last long for me at all. I got rid of it quickly just because I don't like it. As you can see from my car, black leather interior, I'll drive this all day and never worry or never complain. It feels nice. I think it's a very small class of people who appreciate tan leather interior, and so that limits your market for who's coming to look at the vehicle. So that was another strike. And then the third strike for me, being in Canada, the vehicle is in miles. And I know it wasn't a big concern for me when I bought it because I intended to be using it in the States, 4-hour road trip, and miles was actually somewhat convenient. But it seems that miles on a car in Canada cause some people to not want to own it if there's other options on the market. And right now, there are other options on the market. So all in all, I ended up selling the van for $2,400 Canadian, which means that I don't even want to add up what I paid into it down to the dollars, because as far as this experiment goes, in the end, I ended up covering none of the trip by selling this van. And if I do some very rudimentary, crude rounding, I could almost say that I broke even, which would mean I bought the van, repaired the van, drove it on the trip, sold the van, and it costed me nothing. In reality, though, if I'm being honest, I actually had to pay for the cost of insurance to insure it for the trip, which is kind of a hidden cost a lot of the time. And I think I actually was into the van for about $2,600. So I'm $200 down plus the cost of insurance. So what would my other options be in this scenario? So my other option is take my Ford Flex, shut up about not having enough space, squeeze in, and just take that on the road trip, and that's it. That would have cost me nothing. So I would have had the extra $200 in my pocket then, rather than be $200 short. The other option, rent a minivan. If I had to do it again, I would drive this van again over renting. And the reason for that would be I bought proper winter tires on separate rims, and I put those on the van for the road trip. If you're renting a van, they do not come with winter tires. They come with all-season tires. And I just don't feel as comfortable with all-season tires going through mountain passes during the winter as I do with proper, true ice winter tires. So from a safety perspective, I feel like this van was set up to be much safer. Plus, there was expenses that I put into this that I didn't need to. I put it in partly because I figured I could sell the van for a lot of money, so it didn't matter that it was going to be a free expense. The upgraded headlights, those costed me $70. I think they were worth every penny because we drove at night for a large part of our trip, and being able to see down the highway as far as you can with some really good LED headlights and really good fog lights, just the safety factor alone. A rental car would not have had that either. So we wouldn't have had as good illumination, we wouldn't have had as good safety. So overall, I think this was a better option over renting, especially when you consider renting would have costed me, if I buy it, I get a good deal, would have costed me between $200 and $300 on the cheap side anyway. So if it's between renting and doing what I did, I would do what I did, buy the van, use the van, sell it, even at a loss of a few $100s. It's better than renting. To feel good about this experiment, I will justify it as the extra $200 or $300 that I spent to take that van versus a vehicle that I already had was worth the sanity of having the kids having the space that they wanted. We could all stretch out. We weren't all cramped in, and it worked out better overall. So no, I didn't cover the trip. No, I did not get all my money back, but it was a good exercise in the market. Maybe some people will be asking themselves, why did I misjudge the market so poorly when I seemed so confident that this was going to work? Well, a couple things have shifted in the last year, and I've been noticing it in the used goods space, not just vehicles, and pretty much everything. I've noticed a lot less items for sale that are used, and the items that are for sale, everybody's firm on their price. They're saying, you know what, I'll either sell it for this price or I won't sell it at all. And vehicles are no exception to that. And so the prices are quite high compared to what I think the value is, but nobody's willing to sell them at the cheaper price. That all changed about 3 weeks ago when we got back from our trip. So you will know, if you're watching this live or relatively recent from when this video releases, that we're currently in a situation with COVID-19 where a lot of people in my city are on voluntary isolation, which means there's less people willing to go out, less people are confident in the market right now. So a lot of people are already out of work. A lot of people are, if they're not out of work, they might soon be out of work. And so nobody wants to spend their money. What they do have, they're trying to hang on to that so that they can keep it as an emergency fund for whatever might happen. So that also contributes partly to what I was doing. I didn't have to sell that van. It wasn't hurting me. However, not having that money is a bit of a concern. So I would like to have the money back so that I've got a little bit of cushion for myself. So the gentleman that ended up buying the van actually has a newer Honda Odyssey, and he said he loves the Odyssey. He wants to buy mine because he likes Odysseys, and he's going to try and sell his newer with lower kilometer Odyssey so that he can try and get some money put aside as well. So it's a little bit of a cycle. The market is down because of this COVID-19. The market's down because in Alberta, oil is kind of very uncertain right now. And so a lot of people are jobless or facing job losses. And so there's really not a lot of money in our market circulating right now for extra stuff. So people are hanging on to their vans, they're hanging on to their cars, they're hanging on to their stuff. They're not buying houses, they're not renting new houses, they're not buying new cars, they're not selling their cars. So the market's in a little bit of an interesting point right now where it's hard to predict really what's happening or what will happen. So that's the end of this segment, really. The takeaways are you can buy a car, you can take it on a trip, and you know, probably if you do it right, you can at least get your money or close to your money back. So that allows you a little bit of freedom. But good experiment. Now you know the results, and stay tuned for some more adventures. Hey, thanks for watching another GT Canada video. We got lots of great stuff in store, so be sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you can stay up to date on all the latest stuff as we upload it. Comment below and watch the next video.